Hi, I'm Oliver.
I'm Matilda.
And I'm Aidan.
And this is the first episode of That Crazy Music Show! Woo! Today we're going to be talking about modal music. And before we get into the playing section today, I just want to ask everyone in the group what does modal music mean to them? What will we be going into today? And maybe some of their influences in the realm of modal music. So maybe Matilda, we'll start with you. Could you talk about some of your background and your influence in modal music?
Yeah, I sure can. So, yeah, modes. Super cool stuff. One of my favorite books, actually, is The Lydian Chromatic Concept by my boy George Russel. And one thing that I love particularly about modal music is that it is what it says on the tin, right? It is not functional in the same way that major or minor works, right? There's a lot of different considerations that you need to apply when you're using modes in your writing. I'm also a huge fan of Bill Evans, Miles Davis, all of those guys, and there's a whole lot of modal stuff in their writing. And I think one of my favorite things about modes, bringing it back to the Lydian chromatic concept, is it just makes a lot more sense to think of Lydian as, kind of the default kind of major, just because of how the overtone scale works, right?
Yeah,
like where in nature is the F natural? Yeah, I mean, don't want to take up our whole whole Zoom call, but yeah. So basically, the principle is that in the natural overtone series, the harmonic series, there is not that F natural. It's an F sharp, the raised fourth degree. So as a result, if we consider that the basis of how we perceive music and like tension and release, it should be sharp. I'm not articulating that with the best of my ability, but yeah, at least in the reading that I've done and the tunes that I've played and listened to, I don't know. It's opened up a lot of I don't know. It's opened up a lot of stuff, at least in my playing, just conceptualizing the way we organize music in that kind of way.
Yeah. I think to sort of further that point of the Lydian chromatic concept, I've also read it partly inspired by you, actually, because you were saying that you were checking it out, and I was like, oh man, I've been a musician for so long and I've never heard of this idea. And of course, I mentioned in the last episode, I'm hugely inspired by things I don't quite yet understand. So I was very excited to check that out. So I checked out George Russell's Lydian chromatic concept, and I highly recommend everyone else check it out too. I think one of the main reasons he sees the Lydian mode, or the fourth mode of the church modes, as the home key as opposed to Ionian, is because the... Okay, whoa. Quality control time with Oliver here, just keeping it real. So sometimes we make mistakes, but we're accountable, so we have quality control and everything's good. I was about to say in the video, when we have G Ionian, and then I played G Lydian. So sometimes that happens. Here's what I meant to say. The reason why George Russell believes Lydian to be the one to have the mode to have the strongest harmonic gravity is because when you stack fifths, and fifths is a perfect fifth is the first interval after an octave in the overtone series, and it's one of the strongest sounds you can have in harmony, and it's sort of the meat and potatoes of harmony and voicings, and creates a sense of grounding. So he said that if you stack the chord scale in fifths, then you'll see that in the Ionian mode, you actually have a tritone on the top. So if we use G, for example, G Ionian stacked in fifths would be this. So you have G, D, A, E, B, F sharp, and then C natural on top. if I play C down here, the fourth scale degree. So that final interval on the top, if we stack fifths again, would be the F sharp to the C. But that's a tritone, and in Lydian you don't have a natural fourth, you have a raised fourth, which means that it's a perfect fifth. Instrument's a little bit out of tune, but you get the idea. And so if we stack it again, but now in fifths, in using G Lydian, we have G, D, A, E, B, F sharp, and C sharp. And because there are no tritones in the chord scale when you stack the notes of the scale in fifths, George Russell says that the Lydian scale should be the resting or parent or home mode, because there is no dissonance in that chord scale. There's only perfect fifths when you stack the scale, and because of that, it has more of a sense of rest and stability than something that finishes with a tritone on top. So thanks for bearing with me. It's said to have a stronger harmonic gravity, I think is the terminology he used, or harmonic unity. But yeah.
You get two leading tones essentially in that scale, right? Like you get the approach to 5, B so, and then D do, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, it changes a little bit. You know, it's difficult to get used to at first, but you know, after getting that sound into your ears, you really, you know, come to, at least me personally, like come to hear the perfect fourth as dissonant.
Right.
I believe that. I do feel like it is a bit it sounds a bit wrong. The one thing I do disagree with. If we do a
G major 7 with a perfect fourth on top, that beautiful consonance.
Well, yeah, I mean, like with the, you know, it just becomes a sus chord, right? At that point, but like as a that's not like a tonic functioning sound, anything.
The perfect sound when you put the C sharp instead. It sort of has a little bit more of a resting sense than. Yeah. So at least I hear what you mean. I hope the audience does too, when we say that, for the perfect four in certain areas doesn't sound so consonant. But if it's a minor tonality, then it would. Well,
because in the minor, it's not the character tone, right? Like it's in Ionian, right? Like that F natural is what makes Ionian sound like Ionian, right? So when it's in a tonic functioning chord, it just doesn't make sense because you're not so I mean, but the one thing I do disagree with George Russell about is he doesn't consider that C sharp, right? In the overtone scale, he doesn't really mess with that sound, which I think is a little bizarre because I love that. Like it's not spelt like a flat 9, but you know,
I see
that crunch. But yeah, it's a really really interesting principle.
What about you, Aidan? When we talk about modal music, what sort of ideas does this conjure up for you?
Oh, well, I come from the complete opposite side of the spectrum, being a classical kid. So I listen to, for modal
it's okay, we accept all types in this group.
For modal inspiration, I look a lot to like Ravel and Debussy, like the great French Impressionist composers. They knew how to use modes really well, especially as a means for exploring different harmony and developing themes, especially without changing the sound or the feel. They also use their unique sounds to create a texture or an orchestration that sounds like it has no real grounding, which is something I really appreciate because it leaves a lot of space to develop and a lot of different doors to go through, and a lot of different places to go because none of them feel wrong because there's nothing that feels very right. So I find I like to do that in my own writing a little bit as well, but I often just stick to minor.
Right.
I don't know why. It's just the one I prefer most. Of course, Lydian is my second favorite, though.
I feel that Phrygian is my favorite minor mode, second only to Lydian. But
yeah,
there's a lot of cool stuff in like classical music, especially like early, right? Like they're called church modes for a reason, right? Like Hildegard von Bingen.
Yes.
Like in my freshman sophomore year of classical program
what
at
time
U of
period
T.
was Hildegard? Is that like 1600s or is it before, like 1400s? I couldn't tell you.
It's
I think it's
Baroque, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what that era is called.
Pre-Baroque, isn't pre-Baroque the medieval era in classical music history?
I don't know if that's the official term, but that is a good description.
Renaissance or medieval, I can't remember which one.
Renaissance.
Right?
Is
that
Renaissance
sounds
before?
right.
I thought Renaissance was after Baroque.
No, Renaissance is the one right before Baroque.
No, Baroque is like, yeah.
Oh, and then after Baroque, there's classical. The classical
And then
era.
Romantic, and then, yeah.
And then post-Romantic.
It's all coming back.
It's all coming together.
When I think of modal music, I think of two very different things. Like from a jazz perspective, modal music is like D Dorian, and like all the music of composers like Miles Davis or Herbie Hancock or Wayne Shorter, and you name it. There's so many of that idiom of like the modal jazz idiom. But then from the other side, you could look at, for example, an Eastern classical music perspective, and then you have like musicians such as Ravi Shankar or there's a couple other, Ali Akbar Khan as well, that I was thinking of recently, where technically it is modal music. Well, at least from our perspective, it's modal music. They call it rags. But something that I find really interesting in Eastern classical music is that in their modal music, you have sort of the two peaks of harmony. So like modal music, where in our idea you have like a pretty stagnant harmony where it stays in one area. So like there'll be a tempura or a drone that is I'm just thinking of like Indian raga music as like the source example, but like you have a drone in the background which represents like the consistency of like one mode, for example. But then you have in the other spectrum, like the melodies that are played in Indian rags are like the most like very microtonal, and you have fretless instruments and also vocalists who can sing different so-called modes or scales. They use different words there, but the same idea applies. And so you can have some of the most complex harmonies while maintaining the most constant bass or drone in the background. And yeah, I was thinking, like, generally speaking, most of the times I've heard microtonal music, it's been within the context of a drone situation or a modal situation. The only time I've ever heard microtonal music in moving harmony, and like I think this is something worth considering, is in the music of Jacob Collier. I don't think I've ever heard microtonal music in moving harmony before, and that's something I think that deserves a lot of credit, because in my perspective, microtonal music is like the final frontier of melodic harmonic complexity. Like I write 12-tone music and some serial music, but people who write microtonal music or play, sometimes it's more of a vocal tradition or a heard tradition instead of written. But like the people that play in that type of music are so sophisticated, and sometimes it's hard for there to be a lot, like it's hard to listen to sometimes. Like I don't know a lot of people who listen to 12-tone music in their spare time, because like it's a lot to listen to harmonically It isn't like your pop music, which is a little bit easier going. You can enjoy it, and it doesn't demand so much of your attention that it's the only thing you can do. Whereas to popularize something as complex as microtonal music, I think that's a genuine accomplishment by someone like Jacob Collier, and I'm really curious to see where he goes in the next 5-10 years, when this is where he's starting at such a young age. So I'm curious to see that. But to go to like the playing section of today, we were all talking about how we should do this, and we were thinking it's nice to have long form sessions, but for the sake of today's episode, we were thinking maybe to condense it a little bit and have maybe like 5 to 10 minute pieces, all with different directions. So we hope you enjoy, and we'll see you on the other side. So grab your favorite beverage, your favorite snack, and buckle up, because this is going to be a pretty crazy ride. Aidan, why don't you
So-
tell us about that jam? what anything that sticks out for you?
So, I mean, the third one specifically, I mean, it's fresh in my mind. I was
Yeah.
doing what you were doing before, kind of, just in my mind. You were coming up with all the possible chords.
Yeah, I came up with a
in the
cheat
mode.
sheet actually. So that last one, Matilda suggested we play Lydian flat 9 mode, and we this time, the third time through, we tried to be very diligent about not straying. Like other ones, the first two, we started with like sort of a root note, and then we were allowing ourselves to do modal modulation and common tone modulation. So say E is constant, then you can imply E Ionian, E Dorian, E Phrygian, E Lydian, E mixed Lydian, and then go into melodic minor and harmonic major modes if you like. But that last one, we chose a specific mode that we wanted to be following. Yeah, and I wrote out a cheat sheet for myself because I haven't practiced too much of the Lydian flat 9. So I started writing this kind of thing out like in a couple minutes. So like what triads are available, and within like what I found, like just quickly, like from the first scale degree and sixth scale degree, you could do major. On the sixth scale degree, you could also do minor. So like we were using C as a reference. So like A major, A minor. You could put on G, so the flat 7. So you could have like a dominant 7 or minor 7 sound. You also have the F sharp in there from the sharp 4 of the scale. So you can do major 6 voicings. And because there's a B, there's also the 9. So like A is sort of a really good like point to play on C Lydian flat 9, because you have like A, B, C, C sharp, E, F sharp, G, A. So there's quite a lot actually. Like what mode would that be?
What are the notes?
It's like, okay, so it's like a Dorian with an add major 3 and then no 4. A, B,
Or
C,
you
C
could think
sharp,
of it as
E.
a flat 4, right? Because
Yeah,
way
you
not
could
repeating.
I mean, flat 4,
Flat
natural
4.
3. Yeah.
That's something that Evan has me hooked on. The flat 10, is it?
Oh,
different-
the old debate.
Yeah,
Is it sharp
the
9 or
flat
flat 10?
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm in the sharp 9 camp.
Sharp 9.
I
Yeah,
really.
that's a thing at U of T too. I'm like, no,
Yeah.
10 off with that.
I
Because
really
I heard
like-
there's some really old jazz books that, like theory books that go by flat 10. So depending
well,
on
like also,
where
like-
or when you studied it, then maybe you'll be in one of the camps.
It's like it's the same with like the split chord terminology. I don't care for
Yeah.
that at all. Like especially in my time in legit school. It's like, oh, it's a split. I'm like, it's a sharp 9. It's fine.
Yeah,
You can
yeah.
call
Wait,
it that.
what-
That's how it
yeah.
functions.
What do you mean by split chord? Like half
Split
diminished
chord, you've
chords
got
or
a
what?
major. No, you've got a major and a minor third at the same time. But
so say-
literally, yeah.
Say C, E, G, and then you throw
Oh.
an E flat on top. That's what classical world calls a split chord. So you have the split.
Oh
major
yeah, I've
minor
actually
third. Yeah.
I've played with that.
Or you can do
that-
7s. So major and minor 7.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of gross. I mean, really,
I've
it's just
played
an
a couple. Well,
Literally,
Yeah,
it's
like
part
I've
of the-
composed a couple of tunes around that sound actually, like having the major and minor third. Like I like to a chord type that I like is C major 7 sharp 9. But one thing I discovered is that C major 7 sharp 9 is actually diatonic to E harmonic minor. So when I was studying different modes, I found that in harmonic minor, from the 6th scale degree, so flat 6 in harmonic minor, flat 6 would be C. So you have, if you build a chord on it, you could actually voice a C major 7 sharp 9 over E harmonic minor, which is super cool, because at that point, if you have like, because outside of a modal context, sometimes it's really tricky to imply some of these harmonies. But if, for example, you see E minor major 7 or E minor tonality in general, then you could think C major 7 sharp 9, and you could arpeggiate it. It'll sound super out, but like it's within that scale. Or, you know, generally if you put Roman numeral theory behind it, then you could really start to use it anywhere. So like, for example, I'm trying to think really quickly, what's a tune with like a minor major 7 sound? Like, okay, minority is one. Or Dance Cadaverous, yeah, I think that's G minor major 7. So then just think flat 6 major 7 sharp 9. So from G it would be E flat major 7 sharp 9. So that's a really cool, like, let me hear that actually. But I'm pretty, yeah, this is what I get excited by. So yeah, but so if I did, let me play, and then E flat major 7 sharp 9. That would be the tonality. I really like that. Put in the natural 9 on top. Ooh, yeah. So in some cases, like if you really spend time trying to find how you could practically use it, then you can use these really exotic sounding harmonies that you find in modal music in more conventional performance situations, and then use them. That's really cool.
I think yeah, like that's why I feel like bringing it back to yeah, like modal in a jazz sense, like like the D Dorian kind of thing.
Dorian,
I think the reason why a lot of people, especially some kind of jazz musicians struggle with modes is to make it effective. You have to play more simply, right? Like the chords that are available to you, right? Because it's not functional harmony, right? You don't have the same amount of chords available to use as you would in major or minor, right? So that's why most modal tunes, the harmony is a lot more static. Because
wait, how is
in order
modal
to
not functional harmony?
Or sorry, that's not what I meant to say. It doesn't function in the same way, right?
It doesn't have cadences
no.
as regularly.
Well, like right, so you have less chords available to you. So I think because in major or minor, like most like bop tunes, right? You can shred, you can go nuts, but in order to play effectively over a modal tune, you can't really do that.
Yeah.
Right? And you have to pick and choose which
colors
notes you want to, which colors you'd like to paint with and what you'd like to emphasize, because if you just go nuts, right, you've lost the characteristic of each of the modes, right?
Right. Yeah.
Modality versus tonality, right? Like the way that, like the reason why like bop stuff works.
Modal playing
right?
versus change playing, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're using all of the chromatics in there, but for modal stuff, it's like, okay, here are the character pitches, right? The characteristic things that make each mode sound like the mode.
Yeah.
Right? And if you stray too far from that, you've lost it.
Right.
So it requires a lot of, kind of maturity and thought in order to play like effectively.
Or actually, the best part about that, if you stray too far away from it, you've lost it. So like, instead of being handed 2-5-1 progressions to create dissonance and resolution, your dissonance and resolution in a modal situation is adhering or going against the grain of that mode, which can then create the tension and release in your lines. Because if you play 40 minutes of just in that mode, never playing outside that mode, then it's going to sound a little bit like vanilla. But it's by playing against the mode that is so constant, then you start to have the dissonance, consonance, tension, release in a modal situation. I once heard this said about improvising, change playing versus modal playing. I heard that improvising over chord changes is like drawing a line through a circle. and then improvising on modal pieces is like drawing a circle around a line. Trying to.
That's a really, really good analogy. Actually.
Yeah. I if anybody knows who said that, please put it in the comments below. I can't remember right now, but it's something that stuck with me, and I thought, oh, they're so true, because like you kind of have to choose the colors. It's not as much dictated to you, and it's almost as
breed creativity.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost as liberating as a blues, for example, because with such an open-ended approach, like blues changes or modal changes, like with such an open-ended approach, it really gives insight into what people have been practicing and what colors that they lean into more than others, or what colors they know more than others. Like, for example, someone who didn't know the that major 7 sharp 9 is diatonic to harmonic minor sound might not imply a B flat major 7 sharp 9 on a D Dorian chord, because it's not something that they'd be practicing. But like if you're familiar with these things, then it really alludes to what you've been practicing, because it isn't like idiomatic change playing where there's certain phrases that everyone uses because it's the most appropriate thing to do. Like definitely you can tell in change playing as well what people have practiced, but I find like in more open-ended improvising situations like blues or rhythm changes or modal playing, there's a lot more freedom to make decisions on how the sound comes out. Like you could play an altered blues, in and out blues, traditional blues, basic blues, bird blues. Like there's so many ways you can color the same chord change, and that's going to come down to the improviser. Yeah.
Well, it's the simplicity, right? Like I was talking about this recently. Like it's so bizarre to me why, when we're teaching young musicians, right? We're teaching them jazz. Why do we give them a blues to start with? A blues is so hard to play over. Like legitimately, like if you want to do it like we were talking about, like, it's so open-ended and, simplistic, in its form, right? It really depends on what you've been shedding, right? Like it requires a lot of thought, right? As opposed to, change playing too. You can kind of be like, yeah, man, you've been listening to a lot of, like Bud Powell or Wayne or, whoever.
Yeah.
It's a more application of, kind of like, I don't know, that train of thought left my brain much too soon, but yeah, it's a really like, and the same with modality, right? Because you're given a, it seems simple. Okay, here are the notes in this mode. Here are these changes. Like most modal tunes, the changes aren't nuts, but yeah, that's in the beauty of it. You have to think of how to get around those in a sophisticated way without
without sounding too repetitive. Aidan,
Exactly.
any closing thoughts?
I mean, I guess you could delve deeper into modes. Something I really enjoy is
I just remembered something amazing.
Oh no!
Oh,
we
I'm
let
so
him
glad.
speak for the first time in 5 minutes.
Sorry. Yeah,
He gets
big
excited.
mistake.
It's okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Aidan. Please finish.
Something I'm really enjoying is like polymodality or polytonality. A great example is like the famous flute cadenza from Daphnis and Collier. You have the orchestra in your standard like major key, right? And then the flute cadenza on top is raised to half tone and it's Lydian. So underneath like C major, for example, you have so it sounds
Phrygian.
It sounds Phrygian, right? Because you have that flat two, but the strings, for example, are still playing in C major, so they still have access to that D natural.
It's that playing outside the mode that creates the tension.
Well, and exactly, it's a cadenza, so the whole point of it is all that tension that it builds, and it's very satisfying. It's very effective, and I always appreciate things like that.
Thank you, Aidan. Yeah, the other thing that I wanted to mention really quickly before we end this episode, episode number 1. Thank you for sticking around if you watched all the way to this part. Is the Melakarta Ragas. This year, when I was studying composition, I was made aware of a South Indian Carnatic scale systems in the music of South India called the Melakarta Ragas, and within them, it's a body of scales. All I think the first 31. I think is it 72 or 74? Maybe it's 74 because I think the first 32 scales, so the first half of the Melakarta Ragas, have perfect fourths, and I believe the second half have augmented fourths or sharp fourth. So you can, for example, if you want to find a lot of Lydian sounds, but with alterations, you go to like the second half. I believe that's how it's divided. Otherwise, it's ones with perfect fifths in the first half and diminished fifths in the second half. I have to look that up, but but there is that differentiation. But there's 72 different scales, and within them you will find the modes, the 7 church modes, like Aeolian, Dorian, Phrygian, so on, as well as those from melodic and harmonic minor and some from harmonic major. But the interesting part for me was the unique ones to the South Indian Carnatic system, where you find some really interesting scales that are all 7 notes, like before they repeat, so just like the church modes, but with different intervallic makeup that yield different chord qualities when you start stacking dyads, triads, 4-note 7 chords and beyond. It was there where I found the mode that had major 7 sharp 9, and then I realized, hold on a second, this is just a mode of harmonic minor. So I was like, oh gosh, like I went so far to find something that's relatively well known in the Western musical harmony. So it's almost a wake-up call that sometimes the most exotic thing is just looking at different modes of scales you already know. Whether you're just starting out with modes or like a really advanced player, I'm sure there are modes that aren't often played or referenced as colors. But if you do want further, if you want to explore further than Western harmonies options and less conventional exotic scales, then I highly, highly recommend checking out the Melakarta Ragas. I'm sure there are PDFs out there, even if you send me a comment below, I'll be happy to send you my PDF of the Melakarta Ragas. It's something like 12, 13 pages of scales. So if you like experimenting, composing, or improvising, then these will all be really cool assets for you to do your own research. But yeah, thank you again for everyone sticking around. I had a really great time playing again. It always is a fun time with Aidan and Matilda. Please comment below if you have any recommendations for further episodes, because we have sort of our own ideas. In fact, many, like maybe 20 or so episodes more. But really, like this isn't a closed system. Like we're really. I think I speak for everyone when I say we're pretty open-minded to hearing what you want us to talk about, discuss, and play over. And until next time, thanks for watching That Crazy Music Show. Bye-bye for now.